So you may have heard that Blizzard recently nerfed open world farming in Legion Remix, and more specifically open world infinite power farming. But that begs a question, is open world farming completely dead, or is it still viable, and are there other pieces of content that are better than it now? And if you haven't been keeping up with this, there was essentially incredibly strong open world farms that allowed you to get ungodly amounts of infinite power very quickly. And more specifically, these were open world farms where you would be in heroic world tier and you would be grouped up farming elite enemies in very high density areas. So essentially you would find some of the best areas, which a few of them were found. You would be in a group, you would just group up tons of elites in the open world and you would kill them. And just looting these enemies would not only just give you a ridiculous amount of threads to give you an absurd amount of infinite power, but all open world elites had a chance to also drop fragmented mementos of epoch challenges, which you would combine 100 of these to get a massive influx of infinite power, which at around 17 to 18 infinite knowledge, you would be getting 90,000 infinite power. So if you're just farming thousands of elites an hour, all of them having a chance to drop some of these fragmented mementos, you could just end up getting hundreds of thousands of additional infinite power just through that. And that's on top of them already dropping crazy amounts of infinite power themselves. This all culminated into really optimized groups in some of these specific areas, being able to get upwards of 1.5 million infinite power an hour. That means you could get 30 ranks of Limits Unbound, which is the infinitely stacking stat boost on your artifact weapon per hour. And I would wager a bet that like 99% of players in Legion Remix don't even have 30 ranks in it yet if you hadn't been doing this farm, because 30 ranks in Limit Unbound right now is really strong. That's 30% versatility, that's a bunch of stamina and a good amount of primary stat. So optimized groups getting 30 ranks of that per hour was ridiculously overpowered and definitely need a nerf, to be fair. And the main nerfs to this open world farming just being that elites drop a lot less infinite power themselves, and they can no longer drop the fragmented mementos. So that brings us to, is open world farming still viable? And I think that it actually is, because while some of the super optimized groups could get like 1.5 million infinite power per hour, most groups weren't able to do that, and you'd have to be super optimized to even get that. I think average groups are getting closer to 1 million, and from what I've seen with testing now, it's closer to 500,000 infinite power an hour, maybe a little bit less depending on how optimized your groups are. So I think on average, compared to what it was previously, looking more at like the median groups, I think it was probably like a 50 to 70% reduction in the overall infinite power you could be getting specifically from these elite enemy farms. But if you're still able to be getting 500,000 infinite power an hour, that's still 10 ranks of Limits Unbound per hour. That's still pretty good. And even compared to some of the other better farms in Legion Remix right now, that's still one of the top methods. So while it's not absolutely absurd like it was previously, I think open world farming, more specifically open world elite farming, is still viable, just toned down to a more reasonable place. Because some people legitimately already had 400 ranks of Limits Unbound. And keep in mind, it's not infinite, it goes to 999, which gives you 999% versatility, a ton of stamina, and a ton of main stat. The fact that people were already at 400 plus ranks of that is absolutely crazy. That means in a week or less than a week time at the previous numbers, people would legitimately be capping out their artifact weapon, which would also just allow them to very easily get max gear if they didn't already have it. But that brings us to what are some other viable farms for specifically getting infinite power, but also for gearing up, because getting to that item level cap of 740 also gives you a ridiculous amount of power. In fact, I think that is actually a lot more power getting to that point than you could possibly be getting from farming infinite power right now. Infinite power is just the more long-term farm. And realistically, there's only a handful of efficient farms. There's the open world farming that we just went over, which is still pretty good. Not the best for just gearing, but still really good for infinite power. You have doing all of your daily stuff. So doing your daily quest objectives, doing your daily dungeon finder dungeons, doing your daily raid lockouts like LFR, heroic, mythic, all that stuff. All of those are pretty decent, but all of that is daily locked stuff, so you can't infinitely farm it. But then you have the other really good infinitely farmable method, which is Mythic Plus. And if you watch my previous video, Mythic Plus actually got some pretty massive buffs as well that I think is probably going to make it the best overall farm, especially since you're getting a good amount of gearing through it and infinite power. Now, once you've gotten full gear, Mythic Plus may actually be worse than open world farming still, but right now, if you're just trying to get the most amount of character power you can get and you're not max item level, which most people aren't, I would say run Mythic Plus. But we have a little bit of information on some of the rewards you can expect depending on what level of Mythic Plus you're running. Now, the big change we talked about in the previous video is that gear no longer drops in Mythic Plus, so you can't just get boosted up in super high Mythic Plus runs. Instead, they drop a ton of additional motes, which are the items you turn 10 of into a piece of gear that's pretty much always an item level upgrade. So now Mythic Plus runs are going to be giving you a good chunk of motes and a good chunk of mementos. So you'll be building up to getting a bunch of gear and a bunch of infinite power over time. But there are going to be some really strong breakpoints, and I think one of the biggest things with farming Mythic Plus right now is to make sure to 3-chest it. So essentially get really good times on all of your Mythic Plus runs. In retail now, this would just be how much the key would get upgraded when you're running it. That still happens in Legion as well, but you also get more rewards if you hit those breakpoints in the run itself. So if you can say do a +20 and 3-chest it every time, that's going to be much better than like 2-chesting at 25 or something. But I did see someone on Reddit give a little bit of information doing a bunch of different runs, and they were just talking about how many motes and mementos they got in their runs. So for instance, on a 21 they got 13 motes and they got 34 to 38 mementos. At 24 they got 16 motes and 46 to 51 mementos, and it keeps going up with the levels. Now, I think one of the biggest things I've been seeing with information around Mythic Plus is that it seems going higher and higher levels in Mythic Plus doesn't scale the motes as well as it does mementos, but it also seems that the scaling of just both of these rewards get lower as you get much higher keys. So there's not going to be as big of a difference between like a 30 and 33 than there would have been between like a 15 and an 18 or something. So as you keep getting higher and higher, the rewards kind of start to get to diminishing returns. This also primarily has to do with how fast you can run them and making sure you 3-chest them. And I can't really give like exact key numbers to go farm just because of how progression works in Legion Remix, but I would say if you can 3-chest a run, keep going higher and higher until you can't. If you can safely 3-chest every single run and just do those runs very quickly, that is generally what I would recommend to do to get the most amount of motes and mementos per hour you possibly can. Now, I know that's gonna be hard because if you're playing solo or if your group isn't on or something and you're trying to join groups to get into different keys, you're not going to be able to get into the exact keys you want. Just stay around that general level. If you can pretty easily 3-chest like a 20, just stay around a 20, a little bit less or a little bit more. You don't want to get so high into keys that you're 2-chesting them, because it really seems like that's where the massive reductions in how efficiently you're going to be getting motes and mementos really comes into play. So just the highest key you can possibly do to 3-chest it, probably going to be the best thing you can do for pretty much the majority of Legion Remix until you're like capped out on gear. Then getting mementos and getting infinite power may work a little bit differently. But right now, because 99.9% of people don't have crazy high infinite power and aren't capped on gear, I just recommend 3-chesting your Mythic Plus keys, and that's probably going to be the best farm you can be doing. And I would still recommend you do your daily stuff, like your daily quests, your daily dungeons, and your daily raids are still going to just give you a lot of everything you're looking for. They're still going to give you a lot of bronze, a lot of infinite power, and a lot of gear, just doing all of those daily things. So if you have the time to do that as well, I would definitely recommend it. But I think Mythic Plus for the time being is going to be the best overall farm. Now, if you're somebody that really just wants to go open world grind, or you have some open world mob grinding spots you can do solo, that's still completely fine. You're not going to be getting as much gear, but the infinite power is still really good. And if that's what you want to do, you're still going to be getting a good amount of progression doing that. But that's all I want to go over. So thanks for watching.